Everything on this intro is strictly related to the First Berserker Khazan and is not an endorsement of real life violence.
Hey buddy, do you feel like AAA gaming is going down the drain? Good. Pick up a weapon and start hacking. Do you feel like you're not appreciated for what you do? Good. Pick up a weapon and start hacking. Do your friends think you're a worthless loser who gets 0 bitches? Good. Pick up a weapon and start hacking. I want you to deal with your problems by becoming a berserker. Because it turns out, as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a berserker. When I first saw the first Berserker Khazan, I was hooked instantly. Anime souls and the main character looks like an absolute badass? Well, top of the morning to you, bitch I seemingly can't get. My name is Khazan. There's not a lot of Soulslikes that I consider to be actually high quality. The Neo series and Liza P are the only ones that really come to mind, but we can now rest easy because the first Berserker Khazan has joined the ranks of the greats. If you are a fan of the Soulslike and have not played this game yet, then what are you doing? Making a mistake, that's what. Do you like combat that feels like it's the video game manifestation of Jesus Take the Wheel? Do you like badass boss fights with animations that'll make Miyazaki proud? Do you like streamlined progression systems? Yeah, got nothing else for that. Well, this game has it, and throughout my entire playthrough, I could not get enough of it. And that's with the problems I have with it. But what is it about all of this stuff that comes together to make the first Berserker Khazan such a great game, and how is it proven to be a very worthy Souls-like? Well, let's get f***ing jacked. So strap in, boys and girls, and let's get down to business. The first Berserker Khazan takes place in the lore of the Dungeon Fighter universe, which I haven't played, so that's not relevant right now. You are the great General Khazan, and you have been branded a traitor by the Empire you have sworn to defend. But along the way, you're freed from your prison convoy by a mysterious force, and now it's up to you to take your revenge against those who have wronged you. The first thing you'll notice is that this game is heavily inspired by Neo. Everything from the button layout, the way the enemy's health bars is shown, the mission structure, the loot drops, hearing echoes from dead bodies. Like, Neopol just looked at Neo and was like, yeah, we'll just do that. But it turns out that Khazan being a great general is not just a fancy marketing slogan, because this man can fight, and he can chain, and he just doesn't stop. Yeah, this combat is unreal. The combat in Khazan is primarily centered around ripping off combos with the different weapons that you have, chaining together different moves that eventually melt the guys in front of you. And the best part is that not all the enemies are tanky. Thank God. Seriously, you can get started on hacking away at an enemy, and it can go on for so long that they never even get a chance to attack again. The power fantasy is real, my guy. You're hitting guys with a spear, slashing away before hitting them with a pole vault double kick. You're ripping off a combo with the dual wield and then backstep launch a wind slice at them. The greatsword, I got nothing to say because I didn't play with it a lot. And this game is very generous with stamina, especially as you get further into the game, specifically to compensate for this combo-focused approach to combat. This is also enhanced by your spirit gauge, which lets you do things like throwing a javelin that also opens up long-range combat. And as you progress, you also unlock special abilities that also rely on spirit, and they barely use any stamina. So now that 10-hit combo that ended with a pole vault kick can now be chained into a spiral spear thrust, and then a double diagonal slice, and then a super diagonal slice. That dual wield combo that usually ends with a jumping spinning attack can now be finished with a super flurry, and then end with that backstep wind slice. Soon you realize that you could drain an enemy's stagger bar and then have the necessary stamina and spirit to keep hitting them until you stagger them again while giving them absolutely no chance to hit back. And you can see how somebody can start feeling themselves. This combat system is instantly one of the most fun systems I've ever seen in a Souls-like. You can move and chain at such a speed and never stop that you can run into strings you didn't even know you could do. Hence the Jesus Take the Wheel combat. This, along with Phantom mode, which gives you a new moveset and essentially saves you from death if you activate it in a pinch. And the brutal attacks once you drain an enemy's health bar are I'm gonna be honest, I can't tell what's happening. Stop the screen shake. Don't blur the screen. I need to see my handiwork, my guy.
Where's the enemy? I don't know, I can't see anything.
But one unique thing about Khazan is that there are only 3 weapon choices: the dual-wield axe and sword, the spear, and the greatsword. Now on the surface, the lack of weapon variety would be an instant drawback because there's no experimenting that can really be done here. But what makes this work is that all 3 weapon types have their own skill trees that flesh out their abilities and their combo strings. So even though there's less weapons, the ones you have are deeper and more complex. And after a while, I came to actually appreciate the limited weapons because having this system with a ton more weapons would just be overwhelming. And because there's absolutely no reason to not use the spear, I mean, this thing is a gift from God. Oh, and if you couldn't tell by the footage I'm showing, this is another Souls-like that utilizes both dodging and parrying, or in this case, brink guard. And I think this might be the best implementation of it in any Souls-like I've played. Maybe Lies of P, but I find myself dodging more in that game than parrying. But maybe that's just me. Especially when you go up against enemies that are frenzied, which basically means you can't stagger them until you drain their bar. The Saint of Sin sucks! But the enemy moveset presents you with attacks that are simple enough to parry, but mix in attacks that you don't know what's really happening, so you just dodge instead. I know it sounds simple, but it just works in this game. And when you get that counter attack on an unblockable, no matter how you slice or hack it, the combat in the First Berserker is a blast, and before you know it, you will get hooked, and you will not want to stop playing. And then you find out you can't stop playing, because your combo is still going. Alright, so I've given this game praise, now I gotta whoop up on it. You know how I said this game takes a lot of inspiration from Neo? Yeah, but that also includes some of its flaws. The level design in this game, I'm just gonna say it, it's bland. The layout is fine, I never thought enemies were placed in any bullshit way. Okay, maybe not all, but generally the layout felt fair and balanced given what your combat situation is like. But I'm sorry, I know it's your first Souls-like, but every single level in this game feels uninspired. There is not a single creative area in this entire game. The skyboxes on some areas look cool, but my god, how many deserted villages are we gonna have here? How many destroyed towns are we gonna waltz through? Take a shot every time you come across a place made of stone blocks. Your friends are gonna be picking you up off the bar soon. Hi Bill, get the malort ready. I'm not familiar with Dungeon Fighter. I don't know if this is usually the aesthetic they go with for their world, but I gotta think there'd be some creative freedom here. Apparently this is an alternate timeline from Dungeon Fighter, so that should give you an out to make something eye-catching. And speaking of eye-catching, one thing that doesn't help is that the color is extremely faded most of the time. As someone who thought this was a problem in Dark Souls 3, I don't like it here either. It may be a creative choice. I don't think they ran out of budget, but if I may object, sir, I don't like this choice. The level design is already pretty bland. Draining the color out makes it so much worse. I mean, there's an opera house area in this game that looks like it could be a beautiful area, but the color is so drained out that it just merges with everywhere else you've been. It's stuff like this that just ruins opportunities for memorable moments. And since you have side missions that are just retreads of the existing areas, eventually it just gets tiring looking at stuff that feels the exact same. But one area is cool, and that is your hub area, the Crevice. This place is the interdimensional plane where Khazan and all the allies he's gathered come to rest and do things like level up, gain perks from soul stones you find throughout the game. Hello, Daphrona, my beloved. Use the blacksmith, you know, things you'd expect to do in a Souls hub world. But the coolest part about the Crevice is that it's divided up into 2 parts. The normal looking one, where all your allies are, and the demon looking one that has all the netherworld beings you meet, and the place where you go to enter a mission. And would you believe it? The areas load in like that when you go through a portal? Take notes, Bethesda. Each time you clear a region, a part of the broken staircase is rebuilt so you can access the next area. I really like the Crevice. It's a cool spot. But there's one more thing I have to mention. Not necessarily related to level design, but it ties into the world itself. And there's also nowhere else I could put this, so. You are gonna like it! This game, like Neo, has what I like to call the Costco gear system, because you acquire in bulk. At every single point in this game, you will be getting gear drops from killing enemies or opening chests. There is way too much. To everyone who likes implementing systems like this in their games, heed my words now. I am not a self-storage unit. I do not want every piece of gear on the planet thrown at me like it's a fire sale. It is annoying. I hate it when systems like this are here. 75% of it is stuff I'm never going to equip, so it's going to sit in my inventory before I either break it down for materials or extract lacrima for it. Well, ZD, that's why it's there. Then just give me the material then. Don't clutter my inventory with shit I'm not gonna use. Now, I have to give credit, Neopol actually tries to do something cool with this. Most pieces of armor belong to an armor set, and the more pieces of that set you have on, the more perks you get, such as increased stamina, more damage on brutal attacks, and, other things like that. And every set has different set stats from one another depending on if they're lightweight or heavyweight armor. So my eternal complaint about getting new gear that doesn't even have more base defense than the armor I'm already wearing, it's kind of explained here. I appreciate them trying a new twist on this, but again, I think this would be much better if it was more streamlined. I feel like if the level design was better, I'd be more higher on this game, but unfortunately, it just didn't live up to what I thought a game that has this title screen would be able to put forth. But you know what's not disappointing? The main reason why we came here. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the boss, baby. I'm gonna say this with my chest out and my pants down. The First Berserker Khazan has the best boss lineup in any Souls-like I've ever played.
You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
Yeah, I said it. You should play this game for no other reason than the boss fights alone. These bosses have some of the best designs, movesets, and animations I've ever seen in a Souls-like. Most bosses in other games have simple movesets like a 1-2 uppercut, and while that's not a bad move, what puts Souls bosses over the top is how cool you make that 1-2 uppercut look. How slick are those attack animations? In Khazan, these are some premium quality Gordon Ramsay certified beef. With all the bosses though, they are all some degree of tanky, and while normally I wouldn't like that, they had to compensate for the multi-hit combat system, so if they weren't, they'd kind of feel easy. Now, are there some that are a little too tanky? Yes. Elame, my girl, how are you this fine evening? Please put that damn shield away. I mean you no harm. Now, when I started the game, I was freaking terrified because the first boss is a reskin of a bigger enemy you already faced, and I was like,
No, somebody tell me this ain't happening.
This is not how you set the tone for your Souls-like. I sure hope the other bosses aren't like this. Yeah, that fear was immediately dashed the next level. Because let me tell you something. You have never fought anything as badass as Blade Phantom. Whoever made this design is an absolute genius. And we got Margit the Fell voicing him. Oh my god, it's over!
Mission requires it. Surrender to us now.
You fight this guy in an entrance hall filled with blood and then transition to a blood-filled battlefield. I now know where all that good area design went. Straight to the bosses. You want to get an MMA combo? Blade Phantom has it. You want to get skewered? Blade Phantom can do that. Hammer to the temple? Blade Phantom can oblige. Turning into Wolverine to slice you up? I mean, it's anime. This guy also hammers home the lesson to mix in both parrying and dodging and not just relying on one, because while there are easy attacks to parry, there's some attacks that end as soon as you dodge out of the way, so it encourages you to vary your style up. I don't think you will find an early boss in a Souls-like that goes as hard as Blade Phantom, and then you get the guy as an ally for the rest of the game. Incredible. I'm genuinely debating right now how many of these bosses to talk about, because if I did talk about all the ones I want to, this video would be very long, unlike you. So I'm going to keep it to a select handful, starting with Maluka. First phase has you dealing with dual-wield greatswords that are hollow? Alright, different flurries and diving attacks as well as some energy stabs. Pretty good first phase. But the second phase, he literally becomes Virgil. Like Demon Virgil. He gets a katana and starts doing judgment cuts, which look f***ing awesome. His flurries are fun as hell to parry. He then alternates between his greatswords again, which now have a very, very long stabby combo. Please. Alright, that's enough. That's enough. Please stop. Please stop. Damn it! What do you want me to say? Maluka is amazing. But then, you get to Traka. And I've seen some people online say that this fight is annoying.
Oh, they're just wrong.
Yes, it is very projectile heavy, as a lot of the bosses past this point are, but she mixes in some jumping water slashes here and there that are fun to dodge, and for God's sake, you're fighting in a literal tidal wave. Plus her design is absolutely immaculate, but after a while of beating the shit out of her, she flies into the tidal wave and starts doing the bail circling shots, and you get annihilated. But the trick here is that there's flowers on the ground, and the blue ones increase your stamina recovery, so you have to find that one that's there and just scary feet back and forth before her final come down. I don't know what else to say. I might be alone on this here based on what I've seen online, but I loved every minute of learning this fight. And when you start finding those vulnerable points to stun lock her, mwah. But while those three I mentioned are great bosses, there is one that really impressed me. The First Berserker Khazan did something I never thought any Souls game would ever be able to do. They took a big enemy that you already faced, turned it into a boss, and somehow made it incredible. Yeah, I'm talking about Viper, the most deadly boss in the game, apparently. When I first walked into this fight, I groaned. Are you kidding me? Another big enemy that they turned into a boss? That's two now. That's two. We just had a banger in Blade Phantom. No, please don't do this. And then the second phase happens, and he plunges a shard from a corrupted dragon into him, and he goes Super Saiyan. He becomes a completely different enemy with a completely different moveset. The music takes your soul from your body. Holy shit, if this boss wasn't reused, I'd be calling Viper one of the best bosses in the game. And he still might be from a moveset standpoint. There's so many other things to say about the other bosses, and so many cool little mechanics and details to each fight, like Rankus being staggered more to teach you about targeting the back, Aratra being tanky until you destroy its limbs, the more Balerion charges up her Spectre summon, the harder the summoned enemy is, so you have to hit her immediately, Scalpel pulling a Guardian Ape and faking out his death, Princess Alina's song being just instruments until she summons an audience in her second phase, and that becomes the choir in the song. Like, there's so many cool mechanics and details that I would never expect from a developer who's doing this for the first time. It's awesome. And a cool thing about Khazan is that if you die to a boss, the game will just give you Lacrima to add to your total, which is as big of a participation trophy as I've ever seen, but I'm not really going to complain. The lesser players will really appreciate this. But dear viewer, I would be remiss if I talked about all of this and didn't bring up the side missions.
Oh shit, here we go again.
While the bosses themselves are the best part about Khazan, the side missions, on the other hand, suck ass. Every single side mission is a retread or similar looking tread of the main areas you've already been to. They are unimaginative, boring, and just tedious to go through. Now, you might be asking, ZD, why did you just suddenly bring up side missions in the boss section? Are you high right now? Well, no, Matthew. I am not high, because you know why I think these are the worst part about this game? Guess what you get at the end? Yep, reused bosses.
Oh, come on!
Not only do you get bosses that are just big enemies in the game, sometimes you get main bosses again. Why in the hell am I fighting Volbino again? No, that's not a different spirit. That's Volbino. Great, I really wanted to fight Elamane again. That really makes the first fight stand on its own. Oh, this new bandit leader has the exact same moveset as Maluka? Are you kidding me?
Look! We close! We're all closed!
I'm willing to be less harsh on the level design aspect of this game because it's your first time and sometimes you just don't have it. This pile of shit I have much less sympathy for. I'm sorry, but this is lazy. You have these incredible boss fights and you make them feel less unique because you want to have more side missions. Cut them out. Don't even bother. This game is long enough as it is. I don't care if you try to tie them into the story and world building. Do something better with it. But this doesn't ruin the overall quality of the bosses, and even though the side missions make me mad, it doesn't take away from the enjoyment of the fights themselves. So I'm going to be really brief with this story section, but it's still got some spoilers, so if you don't want to know that, timestamp time. Alright, let's roll. So I'm going to be completely honest, I don't really feel anything with the story of this game. I don't think it's a bad story, but I also don't think it's moving any mountains with me. And I feel like I would just spend this section of the video just retelling it, and I don't feel like that's particularly helpful or interesting. The only thing I will say on this is that I like how the story hammers home that almost all of Khazan's men and allies since his imprisonment have either died or been turned into some kind of monster. I think even though we don't see any of these allies until the last minute, there is value in constantly introducing new people in the narrative only to have them turn against you or find out that they're turned. Like the most impactful ones, hands down, are Scalpel and Reese. You hear about Scalpel as one of your generals, and then you walk in and find this thing. Not even a man anymore, just a plague-corrupted husk of a man. And then you see cutscenes with Ozma and Reese in the past, establishing that them and Khazan were close friends, and her and Ozma were about to get married. And then she shows up and is also corrupted by chaos, and this theme hits immediately.
Reese, stop! Please!
I appreciate the writers at least trying to set some stuff up short term, but I think if we saw these guys in flashbacks more at the beginning, seeing them become corrupted or hearing that they're dead would have hit way harder. And that's really all I can say about Khazan's story. Normally I would say the fact that I can't say anything is a massive problem, but stories don't really matter as much in Soulslikes as much as gameplay, bosses, and all the other stuff, so it's not something I'm really gonna hit them for. So in the end, I finished the First Berserker Khazan with the feeling of incredible satisfaction. Even though the game has its problems, I still believe this is one of the best Souls-likes you can play right now for the gameplay and especially the boss fights. I think Neopol did a great job. This is their first attempt at a Souls-like, and I'm excited to see what they do next, whether it's in the same universe or not, or something different. I definitely think you should play this game if you haven't already. This game deserves to sell well, because there's no other words for this game that I can better describe than the words certified banger. This is an awesome game and a great Souls-like, and the First Berserker Khazan rightfully gets an 8 out of 10.